What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. The World Cup is finished, and we have our winners. But first, before we get to that, let's go ahead and talk about quickly the third place match. Croatia versus Morocco. This is one where, like I said in the last video, Croatia should be winning it. They are the better team. But as we've seen in the past, sometimes the better team comes into the third place match not quite on their A game because it's third place. It should be like, no, we need a medal. We should be getting a medal out of this. But that doesn't always happen. But Croatia did come in. They did get the job done. They did. It wasn't the best game. Like, the first half was pretty entertaining. Two quick goals back to back, 1-1 early on, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be fun. And then kind of dies down for a little bit, and then Croatia score another great goal, and then that just kind of is where it ended. I didn't really get a chance to watch the second half, but I kind of looked at the stats, and obviously it ended 2-1, so didn't seem like much happened in the second half, so either Morocco just sort of ran out of energy and couldn't really create much, or Croatia sort of packed it in, or maybe it was a bit of both. But whatever the case, Croatia have done themselves proud by getting that medal. It would have been a little bit embarrassing for them if they did lose out third place to Morocco. But Morocco, obviously, I can understand why they maybe took their foot off the gas a little bit, because they've had a great World Cup. Making it to the semifinals and only losing to the previous World Cup champions. It's a good run for them, and I feel like they've done themselves proud enough where they didn't have to really push themselves as much for this match, and I don't blame them if they didn't. But that ended up being kind of a bit of a dull affair by the end of it. But then we get into the World Cup final, and this is where first half, most of the second half, honestly seemed like it was also going to be a bit of a dull affair. Argentina kind of taking care of business in the first half, as they have done for most of this tournament. France just seemed like they were out of it. Seemed like they weren't really fully there. A couple subs in the first half. I don't know if it was a fitness thing, if Deschamps just didn't like the work ethic he was seeing from, I think Giroud was one, and then who was the other? Dembele, I think, was the other one. But clearly, France they weren't clicking very well as a team. They weren't really stringing many passes together. It was mostly Argentina. A little bit of help from referees, but we'll talk about it. But then second half, late on, all of a sudden, penalty, and France is right back in it, and then they scored equalizer right after. So very exciting by the end of it. And then you get into extra time, Argentina scores, and then France equalizes again, another penalty. So pretty exciting match overall. And then, of course, to end on penalties, either love them or hate them. I'm still kind of up in the air. On the one hand, you don't want to just keep playing the match, because eventually players are going to start to give out. The quality of the match is going to decline. Even if you keep subbing players, at some point, people are just going to get tired of watching. So shootouts do seem kind of like a good way to say, all right, well, we've given them a chance to play it out on the field, so now it's a bit of a toss-up. Now it comes down to those one-on-one moments between player and keeper, and that's it. And I do think Argentina does hold the advantage in penalties, mainly because Martinez, as much as I don't like him, he is a good penalty kick stopper because he's good with the mind games. He's good about doing the little cheeky things that get into the head of the opponent. I do think, clearly we see he does his research, he does his homework about which side a lot of these players are going to go to, because I think he guessed all of them right. And obviously, he did, well, no, he missed the fourth one, he jumped out of the way for that one. But he guessed the first three right, saved one miss, and then one he got a hand to, but it still went in. So I do think because of that, Argentina going into penalties, they probably felt like we have the advantage here, and they did. Lloris, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing for most of those penalties, but yeah, it wasn't good. First one jumps too early. Second one jumps out of the way. Third one, he's there, but he doesn't get his hand down. And then fourth one, again, jumps out of the way. Well, it was still a good penalty, but he went completely the wrong side. So overall, Argentina, do they deserve it on the base of it? Yes. Did I want them to win? No, but that's my own personal bias just coming into it, and part of that is because just again, I'm not really a fan of just some of the players out there. A lot of childish stuff going on, a lot of diving, rolling around. Even though I like Messi as a player, I don't like a lot of the I got hit, now I'm gonna fall and I'm gonna roll around for about 10 seconds. But now that the referee has called a foul for me, I'm okay. Let's go on. It happens too much. Again, players like Martinez, the little mind game stuff, the talking too much, the getting up in the referee's face anytime they want something their way. I'm just not a fan of that. And Argentina has several players like that. France obviously has a few too, but it seems like most of Argentina's team are those type of players. Your Di Marias, your Otamendi's, your Romero's. Just too many just annoying players for me, a neutral. On top of that, I'm an Atlanta United fan, I guess. It's hard to say what I am anymore, but just the whole Twitter hyping up of this match because Almada's for Argentina, and it's just like, oh, come on, Almada. Like, he's played off the bench once in this tournament, and I'm sure now that Argentina's won it, I'm just gonna see all of these posts about we've got a World Cup winner on our team, guys. Get excited for this season, or we're probably not gonna make playoffs again because we don't know how to recruit and we're terrible at coaching and we have some of the worst players in the MLS. Let's go! Come on, World Cup winner who sat the bench most of the tournament. Yeah! I can't stand it, and I probably should stop following the Twitter page, but I don't know. I do at least want to keep up with who are we bringing in the transfer market, even though we just got rid of one of our better defenders and kept one of the worst defenders I've ever seen. Anyways, that's a completely different video. Back on topic. Let's talk about some of the refereeing decisions, because obviously that's going to be the big focus again. And I will say I am a little disappointed because clearly, I've had my issues with referees before. I didn't agree with a lot of the calls in this match. I do think the refereeing quality overall, just in any match, it's dropped. And I think VAR has not helped that because a lot of referees are being too reliant on VAR. So they're too scared to make their own calls. They're like, I'll let VAR make this decision for me. And it's almost like they feel like, well, then I can ease up a little bit. And they're not quite as focused on the game because they feel like, oh, I've got help. So I do think the quality of refereeing has gone down. However, as a former player, as a coach, it's always about, did you play well enough? Did you play well enough to where the referees weren't even a factor? And I think a lot of these games where you see players or coaches coming out after the match blaming the referee, I think most of the time they don't want to focus on themselves. They don't want to blame themselves for their poor performance. I mean, honestly, you look at France's first half performance, yeah, the first penalty was soft. It was very soft. There was a slight contact. Di Maria feels it, falls over, referee gives it, and because there was that slight contact, VAR is not going to overturn it. It's a crap call. However, France, that should be your motivation of, we just got screwed by the referees, let's go. Let's go. Let's turn it around. Let's get back on board. But they didn't. They just sort of, it's almost like that demotivated them, and they're like, oh God, here we go again. Referees against us again. That's what it looked like. That's what I was seeing on the pitch. And again, there have been several times players, coaches in the media after the match, the referee he was awful for us today. It's very clear he was against us the whole time. And most of the time, honestly, it's not even the case. I can't tell you how many different, the one match in particular that I can think of that really exemplifies this, Argentina-Netherlands. So many players on both sides are just like, yeah, the referees really screwed us over today. Okay, if he screwed both of you over, that means there was no favoritism. That means he was just bad all around. So maybe don't talk about the ref as much. Maybe focus on your own performance and your own lack of class that you showed on the field. Maybe. But that's kind of, again, what this tournament feels like happened a lot. Referees made some questionable decisions. You can argue it either way most of the time. And it's like, there's just no repercussions. FIFA has done nothing to keep that from happening. And so every match now, I was really disappointed, honestly, with Morocco. Morocco came out and apparently filed a charge against the referee in their match against France. And I'm thinking, No, like it was a well contested match. Yes, there were a few calls here and there that were a little questionable, but that happens in every match. Like I was really happy with how that ended because it seemed like there was a lot of respect going around. It seemed like everybody was like hard fought match. It was a good match. There wasn't any like stupid stuff like you see with Argentina's play sometime where you see players trying to cheat a little bit. It didn't feel like there was a whole lot of that going on. And then I see that report that Morocco filed. I'm like, well, that just ruins everything. Now you guys have just become another bunch of complainers. And I know, obviously, whoever filed it is just one person, but it's still disappointing because I wanted there to be a match that I can look at and say, you know what, it was a well played match, and at the end of it, wasn't any childish antics of, oh, the referees, they lost us the game today. I just hate that that's become kind of the fallback. And it will be interesting to see when we go back to these leagues where there are punishments for players and coaches who say stuff. Will that kind of bleed in and players will feel like, well, we were able to say stuff at the World Cup, so I'm going to start saying stuff here too. And then fines start getting handed out and bans start happening. I don't know. But it's something that I do hope gets addressed because I don't want, I'm hoping to start coaching again soon. I don't want to be coaching kids growing up and they feel like, well, we can just blame the ref for everything because if the professionals can do it, then so can we. That shouldn't be what it is. You should focus on yourself, focus on your own performance, make sure the refs aren't even a factor. Get the job done, play well. If the refs make some bad decisions, deal with it. And it just feels like that didn't really happen. So, but focusing on the ref for this match, there were some questionable ones. First penalty I already talked about, very soft, very much a dive from Di Maria. Bad defending from Dembele, obviously, but he doesn't really touch him. He doesn't really get him, and then Di Maria feels the slight contact, falls over. Referee, for some reason, gives a penalty. Also, Romero, this is before the penalty, Romero elbowing Lloris in the stomach. Wasn't even, I don't really think, checked. And the thing is, what's funny, I actually made a comment, because saw a Facebook article about the controversial penalty. I'm like, I actually called this after Romero didn't have any action taken against him after the elbow. So many Argentina fans, well, the defender pushed him. Okay, he elbowed Lloris in the stomach. That doesn't change just because the defender pushed him. If some defender pushes me into another player and I go, ugh, I can't just say, well, that's not my fault. He pushed me. I punched the guy in the face. So I don't know why that was an argument being made back to me, but it's Facebook, so people can just say whatever they want. But the fact that nobody really looked at that was very odd to me because there was a clear Romero is looking at him. He sees him coming. Defender steps into him, gives him a shove, and you could clearly see the elbow extend as he comes into him. Nobody really looked at it. It is very quick, so you can make the argument, well, he was caught off guard, so maybe his arm just extended as he's going for balance. It didn't really look like that to me. It looked kind of like a, but anyways, so that one I felt like was missed. There were several fouls just all around the field where very slight touches and rolling around. The referee gives it. The worst one, in my opinion, was when Theo Hernandez beats Messi to the ball in the air. He clearly is ahead of him. He wins it. Messi basically jumps into his arm, which is tucked in on his chest, rolls around for good 10 seconds holding his face, and the referee is like, I got you, bud. You're the GOAT. I believe in you. That's a foul. I don't even think he really saw what happened. I think he just looked over, saw Messi rolling around, and thought, that's a foul. You can't do that. You can't win headers against Messi. That's illegal. So then you get into the second half. Again, it's just kind of little chippy things all over the field, little dives, all of that. The first penalty for France to get them back into it, also soft. More contact than the one on Di Maria, but it still is very soft. It's he does have a hold on his shoulder, but he kind of lets go as they go into the box, and then I don't remember the name of the guy who fell, but at that point he just kind of stops his run and falls. So probably a foul just outside the box from when the grabbing first started, but again, because there is contact in the box, that's for some reason enough for the referee to say, that's a penalty. And I feel like that's something that needs to be addressed. I don't think there needs to be there's contact in the box, that's a foul, because we've seen several moments where there's contact, it's not nearly enough to bring them down, it's not nearly enough to put them off, but then they fall, and suddenly now that's a penalty. Like, who was it? I think it was Argentina's game against Netherlands. I know I keep calling out Argentina, but they've really been doing a lot of the diving. Or I guess I could call out Richarlison for Brazil. Those moments where I'm swinging to kick the ball, or I go to poke the ball and I catch your foot. I don't actually kick you. I don't actually trip you, but I catch your foot, and then you fall over and you're rolling around because I caught your foot. I slightly touched it. I slightly kicked it, and suddenly now you're rolling. Those are the fouls that I feel like needs to be addressed. Those are the fouls that I feel like VAR needs to step in and say, you need to look at this because that was not enough contact to actually bring them down. They simulated that. But that's just my own personal opinion. Obviously, other people will probably say, well, if they kick them, then who knows? Maybe it hurts. You don't know how it feels to be kicked. I do. And most of the time, it doesn't hurt that bad. Like, if you get stood on, if you kick the bottom of the cleats, which sometimes is your own fault. But anyways, don't want to digress too much onto this. The other penalty for France, I did think was a handball. It's one of those, it's unlucky because he's just jumping like this, but his elbow is out there. It is further away from his body, so it's frustrating because the mindset of where am I supposed to put my arms if I jump is definitely one of those things, but I think it's the jump and turn that makes your elbow a lot bigger than your body. If you jump like this, it's still bigger, but I feel like it's a lot more natural than jumping like this. So it's very much up in the air, and it kind of depends on where your opinions of handball lie, like what constitutes a handball or not. And also, obviously, depending on who you're rooting for, because maybe it is just the fact that I'm biased against Argentina that I didn't mind seeing them, giving up a penalty for a handball. But anyways, all that said, talking about performances, like I said, in the first half, it felt very much like France was almost feeling sorry for themselves. They weren't really giving it their all. They felt very disjointed as a team. They felt like they were just not really there to play. In Argentina, you could tell they wanted it. You could tell that they were pushing. Obviously, you've got the big story of, well, it's Messi's last chance to win a World Cup. I've seen a lot of the Argentina players come out in the press and say we wanted to win this for Messi, all that stuff. So you could tell they were really playing together as a team. They pressed really well. It was just all around a better team performance than France was. France was very disjointed. Second half, you had a couple of individual moments. Again, the penalty, maybe it was a little soft, but then Mbappe really did a fantastic job, building up that first or the second goal from a good ball across from Rabiot, chest it to whoever it was that lifted it back over for him, and then great finish. So France did start to find a little bit more energy and a little bit more teamwork in the second half, and they did start to create some more chances, so it did start to feel a little bit more like what we would expect out of a final. And so I did appreciate that fact, because I was worried, again, that it was just going to be a dull affair where France just never really gets going, and it's mostly all Argentina, and I feel like that's boring. Even if you're an Argentina fan, you don't really care if you win. It doesn't matter how you win as long as you win. But for us neutrals, I think a lot of us do prefer to have a more exciting game, a game where both teams score, a game where both teams are creating a lot of chances. And for a lot of this match, we didn't get that. It wasn't until the first penalty for France that we did start to see a little bit more competitiveness. So I'm glad that did change, and I'm glad France did finally get going by the end of it. And then into extra time, it was a bit of a cagey, both teams seeming a little, I guess, nervous to really break out. You still had some, obviously, talented players up front, but it didn't feel like Argentina were throwing as many numbers forward. It didn't feel like France were really trying to break out as much. It felt like, let's just get the ball up to our talented forwards and let's let them do whatever they can do. And so both teams, did create some chances, but it was very few and far between in extra time. And then, like I said, getting into penalties, Argentina has that the not just the tactical advantage, but also I think the mental advantage from already having won one and having a keeper who is pretty experienced in saving penalties. So, all in all, do I think Argentina deserved to win it? It's hard to say. Performance-wise, I would say yes. I think performance-wise, they were the better team today overall. Throughout the tournament, they've looked very solid outside of the first match. I think that first match was almost kind of the kick in the pants that they needed to get going and really start working together as a team, really start, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not congeal. It's not the word. I don't know. I'm going to go get my thesaurus later and check it out. But it felt like they connected a lot better after that first match. And they started moving the ball around a lot better. The defense started, I guess, playing more solid, playing more connected back there. Connected is just, it's too simple a word for me. I don't know what I'm looking for. But anyways, they looked like the best team in the tournament. And France, for the most part, still looked solid as well throughout most of the tournament. They played well, had a couple of scary matches here and there, but for the most part, they looked like one of the better teams. Unfortunately, they just didn't come ready to play for this final, and so Argentina took advantage of that. Now, as far as did Argentina deserve to win attitude-wise, that's where I do kind of say, maybe not. I still look at that Netherlands match and think, God, you're all a bunch of children. You're basically getting into these schoolyard taunts and, doing little dances in front of each other and taunting the other team. And, oh, well, they talked about us before the match. Well, they just need to shut up. Why do you even need to talk to them? You beat them, move on. They tried to rile you up and you gave in to it. So I think from a class, a professionalism standard, I don't think Argentina gave a good showing of themselves in this tournament. Obviously, again, Argentina fans won't care. They'll be happy that they won. They don't care how they do it. But from a neutral point of view, I don't want a team that acts like Argentina did. I don't want them to win it. I don't want that to be the example for, kids growing up in America, watching the World Cup, getting excited about the sport, because those kids will probably be on the national team, some of them. So I don't want kids growing up and seeing how Argentina acted to win this World Cup and thinking, well, we got to act like that too. We got to get up in the ref's face whenever we, they don't do stuff they do stuff we don't like. We've got to argue with every call. We've got to dive and roll around for every foul that we want. Anytime we fall over in the box, we expect a penalty. I don't want that to happen, and yet they go and win it all. That's what the kids are seeing. That's what a lot of these kids are growing up and seeing. So I know it's kind of a, well, who cares type of argument. Like, some people just won't care about that. But I hope some people do. I hope enough people are upset by the fact that you guys didn't show yourselves very well. Yeah, you won, but you didn't do it well. You didn't do it with class. You did it like a bunch of kids. You had more talent, which is fine, but you didn't have enough self-respect. And I guess that's where my problem with them lies. But whatever the case, still got to say congratulations, Argentina, because, they did, at least technically, tactically, talent-wise, they did earn it. And obviously for Messi, again, I respect how good of a player he is, and I think this kind of shows, yeah, he deserved to win it. He is one of the best players of all time because he's won, I think now, every trophy that he could possibly have won. So, yeah, that's basically all of my thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you just want to troll? That's fine. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts in these final two matches and on the tournament overall? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future, I guess, if you're a Chelsea fan, you can go watch those videos. If you're an Atlanta United fan, maybe I'll talk about them one day. Probably not. Anyways, I'll see you guys when I see you. Peace out.